Let's talk about how you take an idea of a guitar product to its final form through the whole prototype phase. How do you actually release it? So, like, can you just describe the process for you?
So the way we came about this was a friend of Todd's, friend of mine too, but a close friend of Todd's, invented the thing that, and you've seen it a million times in airports. It's a step and wash, it's called. And it's a hydraulic step for kids to wash their hands in a public restroom. They have them in Targets and Walmarts, and it's another low-hanging fruit, right? Rather than having the little plastic things that people use that slip and fall, it's screwed to the floor, it's made of stainless steel, and it has a hydraulic thing, and you press it down to step up on it, and then when you finish, it goes up. And the engineer that did this is the guy that we use, so we knew an engineer. We had a referral. So when we started making it, I said to John, the engineer, I said, I can't believe nobody's invented this. And he said, not to steal your thunder, he said, somebody probably did. He said, the difference is you called me. He's like, people invent stuff every day. Millions of people invent things, and a lot of them are good inventions. Most aren't, but a lot are. Most people just don't do it. They don't get it done, right? They don't take the next step. And that's really the partnership between Todd and I. We're good foils for each other in that respect, in that, I knew that he would help me get it done. I'm more the idea, and he's the one, put it into motion kind of thing. That's kind of how we worked initially. We've kind of actually swapped a little bit in those roles, which is good too. But so then we start the process, and it was much longer than I thought. It took 2 years. We dragged our feet a little, but it probably would have taken 18 months anyway. There were 7 or 8 different versions of it. Each time we came up with something, and the engineer we had definitely cut some steps down. I'm sure of that. He has like 80 patents or something like that, and he's invented lots of things, and he's a brilliant engineer. He retired, he's almost 80 now. But we started off, I had some drawings, and he came up with some concepts on the CAD program, things that actually would, may work. And then we started with the the screw together one, the James Bond thing, I call it, clamping on. And we had a couple versions like that. And he's like, this is going to be expensive to manufacture. It doesn't hold together. We were trying to figure out how to screw it down. And then it was 3 different versions of that with some, and we're like, all right, this may work, it may not work. And we still weren't convinced that this was going to work. And then the day that we had the conversation about the thing that locked down, like 3 days later, John called and said, I've got another prototype. And it was literally the aha moment. Todd and I went over there, and he's like this, and he goes like this. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Now we've changed it since then, right? It's different. The spring system is totally different. Concept is the same though. You just pull down and it locks. And I really wanted to use the one that didn't have the release buttons, because I love it. First of all, it clicked even better, right? Having those 2 things snap, it felt really good. But the problem is, I invented the damn thing, and I put the thing on upside down sometimes, right? So that thing has got to be in there, and it holds up to like 800 pounds or something like that. I mean, he built it. It's really strong with the locking system. Ultimately, if we put it out the way I wanted it, somebody's going to put it upside down. It's going to hold just enough to get on stage with it, and then it's going to be the perfect storm of it unlocking and slipping right out and falling on the floor. Right, we're going to get 1 million guitars broken. So I was sad when we had to go with the other version, but the minute we did that, I knew. And it took 4 more versions of it after that. We had to work different things out. It's a real ballet working out the the neck. Right, working out how big we wanted the neck. I gave him measurements to 19 different, everything from Rickenbacker, which is the small end, to PRS on the large end, and different thicknesses of necks. And we had to find that one that worked. And that's what we get. If people say it doesn't fit my guitar, we've had one person say this doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in. It's the neck where it doesn't fit. People have,
right.
And I do want to point out that bass players that have these strap blocks that where the neck is this thick and then the piece over it is that thick, what they don't realize is that doesn't give you any extra hold, right? The hold, the variable, is the difference between this and this, right? This and this, not how thick it is overall. It doesn't matter how thick it is. If it's this thick, and the top part is this thick, you've only got 2 millimeters of clearance, and that thing is going to slip off. I mean, I had these guys saying, I only use heavy duty ones. I'm like, the thickness of the lock or the size of the thing doesn't provide any additional duty. It doesn't do anything, right? The screw could still pull out. It has nothing to do with it. So it always baffled me when bass players are like, yeah, I got the really thick, heavy one. I'm like, I don't understand what that does. It doesn't. I'm not a physics professor, but I know that it doesn't do it. It doesn't tackle the problem any better than. I mean, if you want the most heavy duty, this is the most heavy duty because it's got the biggest disparity between the neck and the thing, right? Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but that's what I think.
Oh, I have no idea about that.
It took a year and a half, and we had to get the what do you call it? The 3D ones printed, and because it's such a finesse. I mean, ballet, just brilliant to get this thing to work. Every little measurement has to work to make this work. I mean, that's why if you change one thing, like we literally had to get the tolerances within 5/1000ths of an inch. We had to find only a couple manufacturers would go to that tolerance because if you change it at all, if there's any difference, it doesn't work perfectly on certain sizes or certain things. It's got to be that size to lock into work. So we used a company in Sweden to do the 3D printing. I don't know if we really needed that, but they made beautiful 3D models of this. So there was some time involved. Then we did a beta testing, and I didn't want the beta testing to be people that we knew because I said no matter what, they're going to be biased. And so I had to try to find people that didn't know who I was. So that took some time, and it was a very small beta test, but 35 people that I don't know was better than 75 people that I do know. And I figured we'd get pretty good results, and we literally had one person that said, I like the one I'm using now better. I think we got 32 responses.
Wow.
So we just it was off the charts. I mean, people loved it. So once that came back, we started looking at molds. Now that's an expensive, we really got lucky there. We got a family mold, meaning everything fit under one mold. Initially, we were looking at it between 60 and 175,000 for the mold. We ended up paying 25,000 for it. Unbelievable. And they did a really good job on it. Steel mold. There's a lot of little things that go on back and forth with engineers. We had a problem. The resin was a whole other thing. Figuring out the right combination of resin. The plastics person, the resin specialist, that really saved us from probably having to scrap and do it over. This is one of those kismet things. His name is Brett Mulkey. The guy lives like a mile and a half away. It's unbelievable. So we met. And I showed it to him in person. He's like, oh my God, this, splaying here, this. So he literally re-engineered all the resin to get it perfect. And now I know more about resin. So that was an issue with the cooling of the way the gates are. And you really do, when you invent, whatever you invent or whatever you come up with, you really do have to take a crash course in everything along the way. In mechanics, in 3D printing, in mold making, in injection die molding, in the gates on it, cool runner and hot runner, all these things. If you want to do it right and you want to save yourself having to pay consulting fees and stuff like that, you really do need to do your homework and learn these things before you get to the next phase of it. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of waiting. It's more waiting than anything, right? You're waiting for somebody to because these are all things that need to be manufactured, tooled, which takes time.